So Father Quentin said, "My most rewarding experience as a Marianist has been to discover the tremendous grace that God has given us through blessed shamanad in the Marianist charism, and to have the privilege of living that charism, even so poorly, and to share it with others. I am deeply grateful for my Marianist vocation and humbly thankful for the unmerited grace of perseverance."
Some of you may wonder how it is Father Quentin is not retired. And the answer is that when you work for the kingdom of God, you cannot retire. And guess what? How old do you think he is? I don't have an answer to that question, but maybe he can tell us. So please join me in welcome Father Quentin.
Thank you for that great introduction. I usually don't get introductions like that. For your curiosity, I'm 90 years old. For whatever that means. And sometimes I think it's better not to get old, but live your life now when you can. But I'm really thankful to you for inviting me to share some ideas with you. I'm really happy about this, first of all, just because it makes me realize that you young people are studying and putting into practice the virtues of Jesus in your life. I don't think there's anything better than you can do than that, because when you practice those virtues, little by little, you become more like Jesus, and that's just important and great. Also happy for the title of this little conference tonight, How the Virtues Affect Your Personality. Because again, I don't think there's anything you can do better than form your person and your personality. I think we'll see that in some of the things that we're going to share now. So let's start with this. If we're talking about personality, let's have at least an idea of what we mean by personality. We use that always. He has a good personality, he has a bad personality. He's a live personality, dull personality. But what that means is your personality is the manner in which you as a person relate to other persons. Because, and it's important. Why is it important? Because when you relate to anyone, you communicate something of yourself, of your person, to that other person. It might be a little, it might be much, could be good and can be bad, but you communicate something. If you don't communicate anything, that it's not a relationship. And the other person, of course, with you. So the manner in which you do this comes much from about what you're communicating. Very hard for a person who might be a bad person to have a good personality. Can be, it's like a lie. I guess you can tell a lie and come off real well for a while. But your personality is extremely important. So we want to see what forms this personality, what it really means. Now, if your personality is a manifestation or a manner in which your person relates to another person, then let's say something about you as a person. There's no other creature on this planet that's more important or more amazing than the human person. And so you're among those. And why can I say that? Well, because there are three characteristics of the human person that really make you what you are and make you so amazing. I think we're going to see that in what follows. The first characteristic of a person, what makes a person, is consciousness. What you are conscious of, what you can reflect on. You see, if you're not conscious of something, you can't live it, you can't experience it. You have to be conscious of reality in order to live reality. So that's extremely important, what you're conscious of and what determines that, what you're conscious of. You know, I had this experience here in Mexico about 20 years ago. At that time, they were building a highway that passed in front of our place. It was pretty far along at the time this happened. It wasn't paved yet, but it was about ready to be paved, and cars could pass over it, but there was practically no traffic. Well, one evening, I went to a neighboring town. It's a mile away to celebrate Mass. And when I came walking back on this highway, and I was walking into the sunset, enjoying the sunset, and it was just nice. The next moment of consciousness was when I woke up in the hospital. And I can remember waking up. I woke up and there was a brother looking down at me, and I looked around and said, "Where in the world are we?" And he said, "We're in the hospital." I said, "What for?" And he smiled, and then I noticed I had a huge gash in my arm, almost down to the bone. My shoulder was all bruised up. My arm, I could hardly move it. My head was all bloody. And I said, "What in the world happened?" And he said, "A bicycle hit you." And I can remember, I laughed. I said, "Are you kidding? A bicycle hit me?" And he said, "Yeah." Between the time that I was watching the sunset and when I woke up in the hospital, I have absolutely no memory. During that time, nothing hurt. I don't remember anything. I couldn't get mad. I couldn't be happy. I couldn't say it. And that means during that time, I didn't live anything as a human person. Blank. You have to be conscious of reality if you want to live reality. So that's the first thing. You know, what determines what you're conscious of? Well, might be interest. It might be what you pay attention to, and so on. We cannot be conscious of everything. That's impossible. We say that God is omniscient. That means God is conscious of everything at every moment because God is infinite. But we're limited. So what you're conscious of depends somewhat on what you direct your attention to and so on. But you live only what you're conscious of. So if you want to live fully, you want to be conscious of as much as you can be conscious of. I don't know if you've ever talked to someone, you start telling him some of your troubles and he says, look, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to be conscious of your problems because I don't want to live your problems. Well, the person, in a sense, he's limiting his consciousness. Or it depends on what you do all day. What are you conscious of? Okay, that's the first point. And that makes, it's one of the things that makes you a person. You say, well, my dog is conscious. Well, in a very limited way. Your dog can't remember, you can't reflect, can't communicate, can't. So the consciousness is a very limited, temporary thing. Your consciousness as a person is going to be is permanent. It's forever. There are people who limit their consciousness. If you go on drugs or alcohol or something like that, people say that I feel happy, and they might say it's a very different experience, but it's not reality. So these are just things. Consciousness is a great thing. Be conscious. Be aware. Be awake. So the second characteristic is very much related to it, and that's knowing, knowledge. Why is that so important? Well, it refers a little to what I said at the beginning. When you know something, if you know whatever reality it is, you take that into your person, not physically, but mentally, as an idea, maybe as an image, but that's what you live. We don't live reality directly. We live as we know reality. See, I don't, most of you I don't know, but if I got to know you, if we talked, you know, I see your picture, I already formed some idea about you. Is it correct or not? That's a good question. Because if somebody says to me, well, Yasmin, what's she like? If I start telling somebody what you like, it may be very wrong. But that's what I'm living. Now, the marvelous thing about knowing is that you can know anything. You can't know everything, no, but you can. There's no reality that's out of your reach of knowing it. And if you can know it, that means you take it into your life some way and you live it. So you see that consciousness and knowing go together. And knowing, it's important that when you know, your idea is true. That means it corresponds to reality. Those of you who worked with the virtues, you have silence of the mind. That's what that's all about. I don't have to explain to you or convince you that in our world, in our culture, any of us, we live a lot of things that are just not true. we have ideas of one another that are not true. We don't really know. Many people have ideas about God which are very, very false. But that's what they live. So, the capacity you have to know is really amazing. Really amazing. Now, those things go together. The third characteristic, which goes with that, is this is what makes you also a person, is we talk about freedom, but it's your will that's free to say yes or no to any reality. Any reality. We're constantly doing that. What does it mean to say yes to reality? Well, when I say yes, I take it in. I love it. It becomes part of me. When I say no, it means I hold it off. I reject. I reject. Now, we're saying yes and no to reality all the time. Suppose you wake up in the morning, suppose it's raining. Now, how do you live that? Well, you say, rats, today I wanted to take a bike hike and I can't do that now. And why does this have to happen today? And then we can't have a picnic this afternoon. And how do you feel? Well, you feel bad, maybe angry. You're saying no to the rain. That's it. You can't change the rain. You can only change how you live it. Because you could get up and say, hey, well, it's raining. Praise God. Thank God for the rain. It's going to make flowers bloom. It's going to help a lot of farmers. It's going to help. Thank you. I know that this cancels my bike trip, but I'll do something else. Those things happen. I had this experience when I was in Puebla. I used to go to the hospital once a week to minister to the sick. One day I went, and there were two young guys, independent. They didn't even know each other, but they had both been in an accident, and they both had broken bones. Now, the first one I visited, oh, he was angry. He was complaining, why does this have to happen to me? He was very unhappy, and I could understand. You know, nobody likes to be in bed with broken bones. But then, a few beds later, when, another guy about the same age, he was also in an accident, and he had similar fractures. And he was smiling. And I said, do you like being this way? And he said, no, I don't. He said, but this happened, and I'm just going to try to live through this and heal up and see what I can learn from this. And I thought, my gosh, two guys in a similar situation. One is saying no, and the other one's saying yes. We do this with each other too, don't we? Okay, when I say yes to you, that means you can come into my life and welcome. If I say no, boy, I put you in your place. We do this with everything. Now, some people don't respond to anything. Well, they're just not conscious of reality. But when you say yes or no, you're practically, in a large part, you're farming your own destiny. If you're happy or not happy, that's not because of things that happen to you. It's how you live them, how you live. So most of the time, well, many people, this is just not the way we live, you know. If I make a mistake, I look for somebody to blame. that means I don't want to really live. I don't want to live my mistakes. Somebody else's fault. If you can't find anybody else to blame, you blame God. That's God's will. You see, God made us to be free. That means He wants us to be able to do everything, because we want to do it. We want to do it. And we're free in that sense to do that. If we don't do things that hamper our will and make us incapable of deciding, but freedom is it's a great thing. And if God wants us to be free, He wants us to cultivate that in one another. In your relationship, in your personality, does it really bring out the freedom in the other person? Or do we put limits? Do we coerce? Do we and so on? It would be just great if everybody would be able to live and do everything because they want to. Now, that doesn't mean that everything is going to be pleasant. It doesn't mean everything's going to be a happy situation. But it does mean that if you live things in freedom, as Jesus said, that that really makes you free. You'll know the truth. You live the truth. You're free. A free person is a happy person because you do it because you want to. Now, that's all. I'm not going into this other thing, but it's the basis of love also. If any relationship is not really free, that means we're putting conditions on one another that just make it hard. In any relationship that's not working, if you listen carefully, just watch the conditions they're putting on one another. Freedom, you do it because you want to. We're made to do that. So that's just one of the things that also say, do I really want to be free or not? Do I really want to live that way or not? Okay, now those three things make you the person. Now, your personality is going to express these things in some way or other when you communicate with other people. A person who is conscious, who knows, and it does it freely, acts freely, is going to have a very positive personality. You might even say, hey, he's got a charming personality. Examine those three qualities in that person. Your most important dynamic as a person are your relationships with other people, because of what's given and what's received. You see, in a relationship that's conscious and knowledgeable and free, you want to give the other person because you want to. You want the good of the other person. Maybe because you like the other person. That's great. But you're giving. And you say, yeah, but what about me? Well, if other persons relate to you in the same way, you're going to receive a lot. You don't take it. See, when I take something from you, that's not freedom. I take it. I demand it. It's my right. See, again, practically any lawsuit is not really a free dialogue. We're working on rights, And there has to be. But if we're at that level, it's not really where we want to be yet. Now, what does all this have to do with the virtues? How do the virtues affect your personality? Well, in the light of what we said about personality, you any one of the virtues, and if you see how that's practiced, you'll see what it does to your person and your personality. Just take the first one, silence of words. It means speaking, talking. Everybody talks. And okay, now when you talk, what do your words communicate? And see, the practice of silence of words is try to make, we want to make our words communicate what's good for others, the best, the truth. And that's going to affect your personality. It's just automatic. A person who's always wanting to speak in a helpful way, in a true way, is going to have a positive characteristic in his personality. You can take that any of the virtues. Just one other example. If you take the virtue of obedience, a lot of people think obedience is only when somebody gives me a command and I fulfill it. I carry it out. Well, that's obedience in a very restricted sense. But Father Chaminade talked about obedience as you're wanting to do the will of somebody else. So if you know what that other person wants, and you say, I'm going to do it, that's a very, very positive. You're saying yes to that person in a very deep way, and you get to know that person if you really want to understand what that person's will is, and so on. It forms your personality. I would think that a person who really practices the virtues really comes to have a beautiful personality. I think that's why some commentators say that Jesus had to have a very attractive personality. Well, he was pretty hard on people at times, but it was in the truth. And something in him really attracted people, even the ones who didn't like him. And so I think that's all part of it. Well, okay. There's also just a final note. When you talk about a virtue, you're talking about some capacity of your person which you're using to do good. That's what we call virtue. Now you can use that same capacity to do evil. If you are capable of telling the truth and speaking good, with that same capacity, you could do that. You could realize. You could deceive people. Any of the virtues are like that. So the virtues are capacities of your person which you use to do good. Now, in your study, there are 18 of those. So if you practice all of them, I'd say you're going to be a pretty, not only good person, you're going to be a very attractive personality. That doesn't mean everybody's going to like you. But if they want to like you, it's going to be very easy for you. Okay, that's all I'm going to say now.